Dorian. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me properly here? Okay. So sorry, I'm short. We Mexicans come in small packages. This is my first novel. It's a historical fiction piece. And I want to start by asking you, who here has heard of a guy called Don Quixote? Oh, a lot of you. Great. Okay, so Don Quixote, as you may know, is the most important book ever written in the Spanish language, considered the first modern novel. It was published in 1605. It became an immediate bestseller in Spain, was translated into English and all other European languages. Shakespeare read it, apparently, because he composed a comedy, a play that is lost, based on one of the characters in Don Quixote. And Don Quixote's author is called Miguel de Cervantes, and he is the Spanish language's most important writer. To us, is Shakespeare. And so I did a PhD in Spanish, and I was researching his plays for my dissertation, which I'm not going to be talking about here. And I discovered he had a daughter. And this was an illegitimate daughter with whom he had a very, let's say, complicated relationship. And when I started researching about it, I saw that most of the scholars that I came across were talking about this daughter as ingrate, as a pain in his neck. You know, she brought him so much grief. And I was thinking, well, you know, coincidentally, and don't blame me because I'm a feminist, most of those scholars were men. So I was thinking, I wonder what she would say, you know, like it takes two to tango. There must be a story behind this that I can find out what it is like. So I started researching. Long story short, I researched like for 10 years in my spare time, you know, looking for information because there's almost nothing on the women who surrounded Miguel de Cervantes. But he was a man who was surrounded by women all the time. His daughter, his niece, who lived with him until the end of his days, his sisters, his wife. Those are all the women that were living with him as he wrote Don Quixote. And so when I started researching into the women of his life, I was like, his life was fantastically and very interesting, but the lives of these women are breathtaking, and no one had written about them. So I was like, I'm Mexican. I guess if I do this, maybe next time I go to Spain, they're gonna hang me from, you know, somewhere. But then I decided Cervantes is the best writer, the most cherished writer in Spanish language, and Spanish is my native tongue. So I was like, I'll just do it. So I did. But just to finish my introduction very quickly, it so happened that the lives of these women were so dramatic that I was thinking, if I write this in a serious way, no one is going to believe it, or they're going to think I'm being corny because I'm a bad writer, and because, you know, they're going to think I'm making everything up. So I decided, how can I work around this? And many years and even more pounds ago in Mexico, I was a soap opera actress. And yeah. And so I decided to write it as a soap opera in a theatrical structure. So it's 5 acts divided in, you know, chapters that really are like soap opera episodes. And this is it. So I'm going to read the opening for you. This is Isabel speaking. Isabel is Miguel's daughter. My little sister Anna and I were washing dishes when a knock on the door startled us. We remained still, listening. Grandmother was outside, and we were not expecting visitors. There came a second, more insistent knock. Don't answer, Anna said, her eyes wide. Whoever was outside seemed impatient, but my sister gestured for me to stay put. When grandmother failed to appear and the knock came again, I had to see who it was. Laundresses, servants, day laborers, and craftsmen were among our neighbors, and perhaps it was one of them. But just in case, I grabbed the poker that sat by the stove before I opened the door. A lady greeted me with familiarity as she lifted the impeccable silk mantilla covering her face, though her smile faded when she saw the poker. I laid it on the floor as soon as I recognized her. She was a former client who used to buy wine from us when we ran the tavern. I was so impressed by her hat, which matched her overskirt and bodice, that I forgot to ask what she was doing so far from the tavern. Was it a velvet ribbon around her waist? Mother used to own a velvet waistcoat that she wore to mass on Sundays. It was an item that I should have been allowed to keep, but the doctor said it was contaminated with the fowlers of the sick room and had to be burned. The only things I had been able to rescue for myself and Anna, and only because no one was looking, were a small mirror and a silver pomander which I hid so that no one could take them or force me to sell them. Are you going to invite me in? Asked the lady. I moved aside to let her in and closed the door firmly behind her. She frowned in obvious disapproval as she scanned our living quarters, which were nothing more than the room we stood in and the kitchen beyond it. There was the mattress we shared, a straw rug, 2 worn chairs, and a shelf on the wall that held our few plates, utensils, and rusty pots. There was a bench by the kitchen fire where I, my sister, and our cousins, Jeronima and Marita, sat in the winter to eat our meals and keep warm. Yes, everything was basic and sad-looking, but as the lady's frown gave way to a look of pity, I felt a note of anger in my stomach. What else did she expect to find in this part of town? Before I could speak, grandmother appeared in the room. One look at our visitor and her face lost its color. Her hands grasped tightly onto her skirt. Anna stood close behind her. Won't you introduce us? The lady asked, looking at grandmother. I thought you would have mentioned that I was coming. Grandmother looked as if she wanted to say something but had forgotten how to speak, and the visitor shook her head impatiently. I'm Magdalena Pimentel de Sotomayor, she said, turning to me with a bow. She seemed to be waiting for a reaction, but I wasn't sure what was expected of me. At the tavern, she had simply been another one of her customers. True, not many women came to buy wine on their own, but she always did so in the morning when the tavern was practically empty. As mother's medidora, I measured the wine and poured it into her leather wineskin. Or Magdalena de Cervantes, if you will. Miguel is my older brother. I am here on his behalf. As I continued to stand there, she examined me from top to bottom. The expression in her eyes revealed that she was satisfied with what she saw. You are his fitting image, no question about that. You always have been. I could feel the hair on my arms stand up. What do you mean? 4 simple words, but I had to push them out. They were tangled in the knot my throat was knitting. Anna was biting her lower lip the way she did when she was nervous, a habit she had acquired after mother's death. I had to remind her constantly to stop. She was making her skin bleed. You look just like him, Magdalena was smiling. Your father? I was only 7 years old when Papa passed away, but as a frequent customer, she must have met him. He was a silent, serious man. My sister never knew how big his hands were or how angry he could get when I didn't follow the rules. Once I almost choked on a piece of orange I tried to hide in my mouth. I wasn't supposed to eat between meals, and when he saw me doing so, he hit me. Mother didn't speak to him for 2 full days after that. Yet despite those memories, I was proud of Alonso Rodriguez, tabernero de la corte, an innkeeper for the crown and the one we had to thank for our Tudesco Street tavern and former home. Isabel, my child, there is something you need to know. Grandmother's voice was heavy and dark, like Papa's eyes before he hit me. You are not Alonso Rodriguez's daughter. Anna let out a cry and ran to hug me. The knot in my throat unraveled, releasing a sudden sob. I don't understand. Grandmother spoke slowly, aware of the pain every word was causing me. Alonso Rodriguez wasn't your father. None of them dared to break the silence while I absorbed the news. The man who had raised me and made sure that Mother, Anna, and I had a roof over our heads and food on our plates, the man whose soul I prayed for every night, was not my father. Then who is? I cried. My question was directed at grandmother, but our visitor answered instead. My brother, Miguel. I'm your aunt. My aunt? How could she have come to the tavern so many times and never said a word? I hardly remembered her saying hello or goodbye. All sorts of questions were brewing in my head, yet the only thing I managed to blurt out was, have you always known about this, grandmother? Yes. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. It seemed that as if she wanted to swallow the words rather than speak them. I knew this would happen one day, especially with your dear mother gone. And what about Aunt Luisa and Uncle Juan? Did they know? Luisa was my mother's sister and Anna's godmother. She couldn't have agreed to such a lie. My mother's brother Juan was a priest. Priests always told the truth, didn't they? I needed grandmother to look me in the eyes, but she was gazing at a point beyond the wall behind me. Juan, no, but he'll find out now, she said. I gave a sigh of relief. At least I could still trust my uncle. Luisa did, she added. That's why she's not home now. She didn't have the courage to face you. I shook my head in disbelief. She couldn't face me? How could I face her after this? Is Papa my father? Anna blurted out, trembling. Grandmother nodded, he is. Her sigh of relief was the final blow. Ana Rodriguez y Villabranca, my sister, was Alonso Rodriguez's daughter. Like me, she was an orphan, but Alonso was her legitimate father. No one had shown up to take that certainty, the privilege that such status afforded, away from her. No matter how poor she was, how destitute, she would always be respected in a way that I would never again be. I knew this because I remembered the contempt with which men and women at the tavern pronounced the word that now defined me. Bastarda. How many times had I heard them spit out this word like it was a fly they had found floating in their wine? You want to read the rest of the telenovela? It's right here. Thank you so much.